Thank you, Virginie. So here we are at the final agenda item of today's Vintage Report, which is the presentation of the Innovation Award. My name is Adam Beek, as Virginie said, and I'm the Managing Director and the head of Bank of the West Premium Wine Group located across the river here in beautiful downtown Napa. But we do cover pretty much the wine business for the bank worldwide. And so Virginie stole a little bit of my thunder, but I wanted to just briefly talk about kind of the catalyst and the idea behind putting this award together. So you may or may not know, but Bank of the West and our parent bank, BNP Paribas, is one of the largest, if not the largest lender to the wine business worldwide. And we're definitely one of the top couple in the US. We've got 350 different clients, and we talk to them very regularly, along with probably 3x or 4x that other folks in the wine business across the entire US. And we're constantly hearing about different innovative and creative ideas. And we really find that, that's awesome, that's inspiring. We want to find a way to spotlight, people who are driving this business, driving this second oldest business on earth into the next century. And so we felt like, how could we go about doing this? And when Virginie approached us to sponsor this event, we felt like, wow, this is the perfect time to create an award. And so with Virginie's help, we've come up with the Innovation Award, and we're really happy to do it. I mean, it seems like it's a great fit, and it's something that we really are happy to be involved with. So now we've got an award, we've got an event that we're involved in, and we felt like the last thing you really need to put together is a good list of judges. And so I wanted to give a quick shout out before I call up the last presenter. To the judges. And the group of judges that we have this year, the first one is Paul Bentinelli, and he's a vineyard manager for Bentinelli, not Paul. Sorry, Paul Goldberg. I should look at my list again. Sorry about that. Pardon me. Paul Goldberg, who's a vineyard manager with Bentinelli Vineyards here in the lovely Napa Valley. The second judge we have is Professor James Kennedy. He's a professor and chair with the Viticulture and Enology program at CSU Fresno. The third is our own Jennifer Putnam, with the CEO and executive director of the Napa Valley Grape Growers. The fourth is our returning champion, Curtis Phillips, who's the senior editor with Wine Business Monthly. This is the second time through, as I mentioned. And last but not least, our presenter, Mr. Aaron Potts. And Aaron is the winemaker with Pot Wines, which has an interesting connotation given my history growing up in Mendocino County. But I guess given the 2 T's, you probably get out of jail free card. So now I'll have Aaron come up and make the presentation. Thank you.
I don't think the concept of pot wine is doing so well with grass at only $2 a square foot. So. Anyway, our esteemed panelists, chosen for their intellect and their beauty, not for their long macerations. We had several submissions that focused on a lot of different subjects, but the main subject was, surprise, surprise, drought-related issues. So we had conversion to dry farming, conservative irrigation practices, optimization of vine water, etc. And we came down to 3 finalists. Those 3 finalists were, firstly, effective variable rate irrigation strategy on the variability of crop production in wine grapes by Luis Sanchez and all of those millions of people that work at Gallo. I know them well because I've met their lawyers a few times. They're on retainer, just like the scientists. Evaluation of 2 rootstocks using sequential petiole sampling and berry analysis by Will Thomas and David Gates at Ridge. And developing tools to manage grapevine leaf roll disease, remote mapping, and regional grower groups by Monica Cooper, the UCCE farm advisor. And the envelope, please. Everyone on the edge of their seats. And the winner goes to Ernest and Julio Gallo. Clearly not a paid thing. They have nothing to do with fruition science.
Good. So, Gallo.
Gallo. I'll give you the names of the lawyers, and you can hit them over the head with it. Congratulations, Luis.
Thank you so much.
Very good paper.
I'd like to call to the podium Alan Klassen, also from IBM. This was actually a partnership between Gallo and IBM. So very glad to share the award with Alan as well. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to say a few words about the project. Actually, a presentation here. Again, I want to thank IBM for participating and for contributing so much to this project. They actually designed the system and are running it. They've been running it for 2 years, and we're planning to running it at least another couple of years, hopefully. So I'll start an introduction by talking about vineyard variability in precision viticulture, which is what brings us to variable rate irrigation. And when we look at a vineyard from the distance, usually we see a very uniform view, straight rows, beautiful vines, mostly for the common people. That's what they see. However, when we apply spatial analysis tools such as the yield monitor, we find actually that there could be up to 3 to 5 fold differences in yield within that vineyard. This is a 20-acre Petit Syrah vineyard. And those differences, that spatial variability matches very well with quality, in this case, quality index that we use at Gallo. And also matches very well and spatially as well with canopy development illustrated here with this NDVI image. And everything, though, boils down to soil variability and soil characteristics, in this case, clay content, but boiling even further down to water holding capacity, which is one of the main physical properties of the soil. And so this, even though we plant these vineyards uniformly and farm them uniformly, the soil makes them variable. And so how do we optimize yield and quality in a variable situation like this? The answer for the modern vineyard and for us and what we pursue is precision viticulture, and which is management to optimize vineyard performance, responding to intrafield variability, maximizing grape yield and quality, and minimizing environmental footprint. And variable rate irrigation as a big objective of precision viticulture in viticulture has not seen a lot of inroads. There is sensor-driven systems that have been set up in potted vines, potted plants, ornamental plants in nursery production worldwide. And the actually most closest or truly variable rate systems have been actually implemented in field crops in many parts of the U.S. In grain crops in center pivot systems. In terms of vineyard irrigation, what we've done is take the vineyard, divide it into major irrigation management zones, and either retrofit an existing irrigation system or install a new one, pipe it in, and establish these zones. However, these systems are not very flexible. Once they're established, they cannot be modified on the run if any soil conditions develop or arise, and unless they are retrofitted again. So the objective of this study was to develop and operate a proof of concept VRI, which is what I'm calling variable rate irrigation from now on, system, a prototype, and validate it while maximizing or measuring its effects on vineyard variability, fruit yield and quality, and water use efficiency. This is the location of the experiment in the San Joaquin Valley, actually south of Sacramento, just north of Galt, the vineyard in red there and the block in yellow. And this is the block. There's a 30-acre Cabernet Sauvignon block on 5C, 5 by 11, drip irrigated, very variable, hand pruned, and on a clay soil, clay loamy soil. And what you see here in the background of the polygon is the yield map for 2012. And so based on that yield map and the variability there, the yellow reds showing low yields and green blues, the highs, we delineated a 140 irrigation experiment with 140 zones, which are delineated here, 14 going north to south and 10 by 10 east to west. And these are 15 by 15 meter irrigation zones that lined up perfectly or register exactly with the Landsat pixels. And we use Landsat as the source for scheduling our irrigations with a energy balance model, which I'll describe next. And just south of that, adjacent, we delineated another 140 zones, which is a digital delineation. Basically, it's a digital grid that we used on a GIS program just to extract data from our spatial data, such as the yield maps or NDVIs, et cetera. And so the upper part is the variable rate irrigation area again, and the lower part is the conventional irrigated area. So CI and VRI. So this is the general layout of the system. All these little dots that you see here are solenoid and check valves. There's about 700 of them. Each one of the rows has its own communications and power wiring. And there are, each irrigation zone is either 4 or 5 rows wide by 10 vines long. And here's the main control box, which I'll show you in a minute. And this is the actual design. It's a double hose system with the upper hose being a blind one, connected with the stick connections with the lower one that holds the drippers. And each irrigation zone, so from T to T, there's 10 vines. You'll see 20 emitters there, and flanked by a solenoid valve at one end and a check valve at the other. So if the water is coming this way, it'll go down and find an open solenoid, irrigate this zone or this section, and exit through the check valve. But if this same section is closed and the others are open, the water cannot go back into that zone. So each one can be independently operated and can be off and on without being affected by the status of the adjacent zones. This is just the exploded view of the actual connections with the PVC piping and connections, etc. And that's the field view of the system. And in addition, you see here a control box, which holds a little electronics panel that conveys the opening and closing signals to the solenoid. And here is the main control box in the center side of the experiment with all the power access or the power entries and distribution network, as well as a central CPU, a central control box, something to prevent power outages, a cell link for communications, and lightning protection as well. And the control of each zone is achieved by a computer network with single master coordinating operation, a master-slave messaging protocol based on Modbus, and achieving a high speed over 3,000 feet cable or wiring, especially the communication wiring is extra long. And then there's a PC and the master control are accessed remotely through a cell link to load the irrigation schedules. And irrigation scheduling is done through a metric, which is a model developed by or adapted by Rick Allen, University of Idaho, which calculates ET as a residual of surface energy balance. And Martin Mendez already explained this. Again, I indicated he was the one who brought a metric to Gallo. And metric uses Landsat data as inputs, visible and infrared bands, as well as CIMIS weather data and outputs ET, and especially the crop coefficient, which is each is tailored, derived from the NDVI of each one of the plots. The 2013 irrigation management, these are the management factors that we used. We used 120% of ET, followed by 50% and 70%. This is 2013. On those zones that, according to the 2012 yield map, were below average, and the other half were not irrigated, that were above average, were not irrigated during the first 4 weeks, then followed the same irrigation pattern the rest of the year. In 2013, the objective was to decrease vulnerability. In 2014, the objective was to increase the yield of those areas that were low yielding in 2012. So these are the results, and these are the results, and showing the 2012 yield map. Here we see the low yielding areas in the north half of the block, high yielding areas in the south half of the block. In 2013, what we got was to decrease vulnerability, and you can see the range changes. I cannot read very well, 6.3 to 2.6. And then in 2014, we completely reversed the pattern of variability in that 10-acre section, with everything now in the north being high yielding and low yielding in the south. And by comparison, this is the control area. We can see that there are some changes in values from one season to the next. However, the pattern in 2012 and 2013 is the same pattern of variability that we had in 2012. These are the water. This is the water applied in each one of the irrigation zones. And then the red bar here shows that's for 2013. Red bar here shows the average water applied in this VRI, and in the yellow bar, the water applied in the CI, in the conventionally irrigated plots. And then for 2014, you can see the shift in the program here, where we really increased irrigation in the low-yielding plots. And here is water use efficiency for all the VRI irrigation zones. And these are all the conventional irrigation zones, of course, receiving the same amount of irrigation, each one of them. However, what I want you to notice is that this is in the red diamond. This is the mean average water use efficiency for the VRI which was higher than the water use efficiency for the CI. And the same thing happened in 2014. Water use efficiency was higher in the VRI than in the CI. And here's the comparison of yields across all the plots between 2013 and 2012. And you can see there's a slight increase in the low yielding areas for the red line, which is the VRI. And then in 2014, a complete reversal and a more dramatic result of the pattern of distribution, completely reversing, as you saw in the graph. These are spatial statistics for coefficient of variability and variation and the spread. The spread is the mean, the median, the range by the median divided by the median. It's a much better statistics to foreseeing spatial data, showing that the spread decreases in 2013 for the VRI and increases again in 2014, but not as much as it did in the CI. And most of these changes were due to very wet. I'm finishing in 1 minute. And it's too early to have affected, our objective is to affect vine capacity, and that will affect fruitfulness in the number of clusters per vine and number of berries per cluster. But so far we have affected only berry weight. Our conclusions are that we successfully implemented the system. We were able to control vineyard variability at our will, and we maintained high water efficiency through both seasons. The system is very expensive as it is, so it's not on a commercial grade at all. And we're seeking, there's an opportunity for a startup company or an existing large irrigation company to develop this system and bring it to the next level, to a level of, where it can be competitive with existing systems. And it can be deployed not only in grapes, but on any other permanent crop system. And I'd like to, lastly, to acknowledge everyone at Gallo in our viticulture lab, Brent Sams for all our GIS, his GIS expertise, our GIS intern Megan, Erin, George, and Nona for management, Martin and Andy again for initial setup of the project and also for the contribution with the metric model, and also Nick Dukuslian for his leadership. Also everyone at IBM Watson Lab, TJ Watson Lab in New York, and data center services in San Jose, Levente, Alan, David, Nigel, and Hendrik. Also James Taylor at Newcastle University, and Ernie and Jeff Docio at Pacific Agri-Lands for the management of the vineyard, and Jeff Bennett for their contribution with the management of the system, initial setup of the system.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and sorry for taking so long.